homeboy. Homeboy. Brothers, there's only one blood, cause it ain't no sense in us trampling on the stones. It's us, down to the bone. Blood is thick, waters were known well, cousins were kept apart, mothers were often memories. Fathers were not favorites on the farm, for he could do some harm, he could wreck the master scheme, for he, brothers, could dream. Your mama ain't no saint, your daddy died in a shallow stream, but your uncle, Dr. King, did have a dream, my brother. And what is your real excuse? Why can't you study your lessons and stay in school? Why can't you study your lessons and stay in school? Free love and sex ain't nothing but a game. Don't never last, try hope. Take a chance on love. Register to vote. Money ain't everything, but you can
Homeboy by Sunji Ali. Welcome to the Qumran Report. May the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. My name is Melvin Ishmael Johnson, coming at you live from Morris Media Studio. Our call-in number is 1-323-293-3375. This week on the Qumran Report, we will talk about the meaning of Dr. Martin Luther King. My special in-studio guest is some of the cast members and the production team for the Watson Goes To Birmingham, which opens Friday, January the 26th, 2018 at the Hudson Theater located at 6539 Santa Monica Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90038. Welcome to the Qumran Report.
Thank you for having us.
Let's go around and introduce ourselves. Start from this end and we'll roll around and tell what part you're playing in it.
My name is Javen Smith and I'm playing the part of Byron.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Sonia Jackson. I play Grandma Sands.
I'm Ken Ivey and I play Kenny Watson.
My name is Marcus Clark Oliver, and I am playing Daniel Watson, the father.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Bernadette Speaks, and I'm the director of the show.
Okay, can you give us some in-depth information about all of the basic information about the play, the opening, people that want to get tickets, etc., like that?
Oh, okay. Well, the play is about the Watson family. We call them the Fab Five. And it's really a coming-of-age story. It's told through the eyes of Kenny and how he... It would be helpful if I talk in the mic. I was trying to use my theater voice. But anyway, the play is told from Kenny's perspective, and it really just shows how love can overcome all circumstances. You can get your tickets at Plays 411, and the website is www.plays411.com/thewatsons. Again, we do open January 26th. We have general tickets, we have student, and we have discount tickets. And so we open on the 26th. We run Friday, Saturdays at 8 o'clock, and Sundays at 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Also, before you finish, there's a family-friendly show.
There is.
So
it is a
there's
family-friendly
show. Children's
Yes.
ticket
Yes.
and group ticket.
Yes. So children from 7 to 17 get in for $10. If we have groups 10 and above, they also get in for $10. So we're trying to just cover all the masses and the economical status of people so that they can come out and really enjoy this show.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll come back in the second half of our show and discuss the play in details and also perform the two scenes. Well, let's get into our discussion about Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King National Holiday was Monday, January the 15th, 2018. I wonder how many of us out there really understand the meaning of Dr. King for this day and age and why he was seen as such a threat by those in power. I'd like to go around the room and talk about what is the meaning of Dr. King to you. Let's start on this end. Talk about
That's
what.
that's
Youngin' start.
that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
What does he mean to me? A symbol of all those that came before us to make my life possible. A symbol of resistance, of perseverance through the onslaught of oppression and violence and systemic racism and economic inequality. Someone who really speaks to one speech that I really love is his where he's addressing. It's at the end of the Selma March, excuse me, and he says that the white man was fed the bird that is Jim Crow. And to me, that really resonates with me because it shows that it was never it was that racism that especially when it comes to like poor whites, it's that they were given this idea that no matter how poor, how terrible your life is, you're still better than any other black man. And to me, that really gave me, because when I was younger, I feel like I was really struggling with, like, why? Like, this doesn't make sense. And on like a subconscious level that racism is illogical. It has no basis in fact, science, nothing. But to me, to read his words and see that, it was like a light bulb moment for me where it's like, okay, so this is what we're struggling against. We're struggling with this idea that people are holding on to, that their skin color makes them better. That there's no basis behind it. It's just that they feel they're holding on to this idea that all like non-white people are trying to take this from them. They're trying to take wealth. They're trying to take prosperity. They're trying to when we say equality, they hear oppression. Mm-hmm. So to me, Martin Luther King is inspirational, obviously, but is like a spirit, like a driving force that reminds you that keep pressing forward, keep going.
What did you think about his philosophy of nonviolence?
That's a loaded question again. I think that it gets a little. Well, I think that first of all, I believe in nonviolence, but what we have today are a bunch of people who have basically just bleached his legacy. So they've made it very, very, very like nonviolent. No, in the face of everything, be calm. Don't. There's no. It's kind of like almost a zen of having people spit in your face and yes, there is nonviolence, but there's also resistance. Mm-hmm. And when we can't bleach his legacy and be like, oh, he was just like, meditating on the floor while people were killing other blacks. Like, no. He was nonviolence. Also, he did nonviolent resisting, right? So whether that means sit-ins, protests, he had very fiery speeches. One, I'm losing it. He said that the only normalcy that we will accept is that of acceptance of all of God's people, and righteousness will flow like a river. And I mean, that is, to me, that's not a. That is a no. We're peaceful, but guess what? We're still here.
Peace. Mm-hmm. Peace in action.
Yeah, so it's like we're peaceful, but we're here resisting. We're doing things. So I think while we need to hold on to the nonviolent aspect of it, we also need to understand that in hand with that, we need to be resisting and being vocal and making people uncomfortable sometimes, because that's what I think it's going to take.
Have you ever had a chance to visit the southern states, any of the southern states?
Unfortunately, I have not yet, but I really am looking forward to doing that.
One more question. Your character. What do you think about? You played that character Byron, which was the sort of like the rebel in the family. That taken.
There's a lot of haters. There's a lot of
yeah. Coming from
nicely put.
Flint to Birmingham and all. Can you talk? What was your approach to getting a handle on this particular character?
I think for me, getting in touch with Byron really was getting to that place I was talking about earlier, where there's this why, there's this frustration when you're young and you're trying to find this. Well, still doing that, but there's a struggle to understand, and I think for Byron, he is trying to find control in his life, as a lot of us are, but his form of finding that control is being domineering on other people. Mm-hmm. Because to me, he feels like he's living in this world that is basically telling him he doesn't have a place, mm-hmm. and that he doesn't have agency. And so where he finds his agency is, I'm going to bully this I'm going to make all these people fear me because I have control of that. That's mm-hmm. my control that I have. Whether it's how he does his hair, or how he treats his brother, or when someone picks on his brother, how he treats them. That his strength, his violence, mm-hmm. is his way of finding his agency.
Okay. Well, let's move on to Mama Sam. So can you tell what's the meaning of Dr. King to you?
Well, my grandson Byron just hit on a whole lot of it. And I think one of the big things for me is the actionable piece, because we having grown up at that time and having been a part of it, it's one of the things that we don't think of now as actionable peace. And people want to take up arms and they want to fight back, but there's a way of fighting back that won't hurt or attack you as well. Because mm-hmm. when you're fighting, there's that energy of hate that's coming from you. And that energy of despair, and it continues to bring us down individually if we're expressing that. So you can't express it without being affected by it. Mm-hmm. So if you're expressing the hatred and the violence and all of that, then you're becoming it. You're being it. Mm-hmm. So the actionable piece comes from being able to be in control of who you are and have your own peace about you and maintain your own peace and love, and still be in the face of, no, what you're doing is not right, and I'm not accepting it for me, and this is what I'm doing about it. Mm-hmm. So there's that has to continue to have action, and that's one of the things that we haven't had and haven't seen for a long time. I can remember where I was when King was shot, and
mm-hmm. Can you talk about that? Where?
Well, I was washing dishes in the kitchen, and I went and told my parents mm-hmm.
What
was going on and what was happening, and it was just what because it was incomprehensible that happened.
And you were where?
I was in L.A. I lived mm-hmm. in L.A. Mm-hmm. and I grew up in a family that taught peace, that taught strength from within each individual person. And I mean, when we got here, we found a church that was open to integration. I did not know it at the time because I was really little in the 50s, and they were about having a greater understanding of people. So they actually had workshops where blacks and whites sat down and talked to each other about what was going on and what the truth was and who are we and who they were, and how can we all grow together and create a world that we wanted to be, mm-hmm. wanted to live in. And so I grew up around nonviolent activity. And so it was different for me to be in that. And every time I found myself in a position where I was being violated, I had to reassess, because my first thought, of course, went to, but I had to go, okay, I don't like that feeling for me. So I had to create within me a way to react. And I think that's one of the other things that King taught so well, but people don't look at him, what he was doing, as a teaching and just a way of life. It was a philosophy. It was a way of living in the world.
Now, what was your approach to this particular character? How did you get into this character?
To Grandma Sands, I think, well, I had two grandmothers that I knew in life, both my grandmothers, and then I've had over lifetimes many grandmothers who've had a variety of philosophies and experiences. So I kind of pulled from all of them, as well as my mother and the mothers that I've had over life, because when you grow up in the church, every woman over 40 is your mom, and you have to you gather information from all of them if you allow yourself to. So there's a way of being as mother that's a little bit different than grandmother, because grandmother is a little bit removed and can actually watch the dynamic of a child growing up, whereas mom is right immersed in the dynamic of a child growing up. And they don't always see the child. They see as a person, rather. They see it as a child only, that someone I have to take care of, someone I have to watch out. I have to make sure I'm raising them right. I have to make sure that this is happening in this particular way. And grandmothers are sitting back going, ooh, look at her. Look at what she's doing to that child. No. And so we have a different way of being. Grandmothers have a different way of being with their grandchildren. So I kind of looked at that and looked at the script as watching my daughter with her child and what was working and what wasn't working, and doing what I think he needs to have, and looking at the script from that.
Okay. Let's move over to Ken. What's your talk about the meaning of Dr. King?
Well, what comes to mind is a lot of what Byron said, but also it's a man who believed in the vision, and yet to this day we're still fighting. But you can see the evolution of what one man had in his head. And so when I think of, Dr. King, I think of, I have a dream. As a lot of people do. We're here, we're creating this project where we're doing this play, and this is all of our passions, and we all actors, directors, and we all have something that we want to achieve. And when I look at someone like Dr. King, it's more than just, it's more than just blacks versus whites. To me, it's someone who believes. And I feel like that with that power, and anyone who has that, with a belief in themselves, a belief in the vision, that's what he stands for me. When I see his hope, it inspires me to, even though I'm not going out and curing cancer, and I'm not going out and whatever president, and I'm telling my story as an artist, and I believe in myself. I believe where I can go because of someone like Dr. King, and it's interesting because one of we call her a little bit Zaria Kelly. She has a little jacket and it has a Dr. King on it, and she's that young, and she's talking about how she's going to go home and read up on I forgot what she was saying. She's going to read on civil rights movements, and I'm like,
she's 8.
She's 8. And that's inspiring that someone can make that impact that's still, impacting children who's 8 years old. I mean, when I was 8 years old, I don't know what I was doing, but I wasn't doing that.
So how did you prepare for this role? What kind of, did you have to do a lot of research on Birmingham? And
I didn't have to do much research because it kind of crosses over to my life. You know, Kenny, he's middle child. I'm middle child. Mom and dad, this is just how my family is. I mean, I didn't get picked on, but my older sister kind of got me a little bit, so I can kind of make the direct substitution with Kenny's life in the crossover. And his name is Kenny. My name is Kenny. That was an easy one. He's born in Flint, Michigan, which is right next to Wisconsin. So the seasons are very similar. Yeah. And Javen knows.
Yeah, unfortunately.
How did you approach your character in terms of showing the character in Flint and when you went to Birmingham? How did you, what were your approach to that in terms of reflecting that?
Well, in Flint, it was, this is my life. It starts off showing, the writer shows us that, I get bullied. My problems are small. They're my problems, but when we go to Alabama, there's real problems. So it's kind of making the switch of, someone who's inside themselves and they have their insecurities to someone who have to realize that the world is bigger. And so the whirlpool and the bombing of the church, it all sort of and so I think it's more of coming of age and maturity in the character.
Okay. Marcus.
Yes, sir.
What's Dr. King, meaning of Dr. King to you?
Well, when I think of Reverend Dr. King, immediately I think of like the ultimate inspiration. Ken was talking about when he was younger, when he was 8, he wasn't thinking about things like that. Well, when I was around that age, before he had his holiday, before that took place, we would hear on his birthday in our schools, they would play his I Have a Dream speech on the PA system. So everyone would hear it, and you get a little blurb of a little bit about Martin Luther King and maybe one or two other, historical black figures. And then you move on with your lessons. But I remember those days when they played that speech. I may not have even fully understood everything that he was saying, but I know it sparked something in me. Now I know that's inspiration. He had an idea, like Ken said, and he followed through. More than just an idea or a dream, he had, he just had a vision, and he knew that if he could inspire, enough of us, not just black people, but just people in general, that his dream could come to fruition. So I see him, as the ultimate inspiration, as the ultimate leader. This past holiday, I was a little sick, but I was watching television, and I saw some footage. It was just tracing the Selma march, and it had footage that I had never seen before, parts of speeches I hadn't heard before. And that same feeling I got when I was younger, I got it as an adult now. But I understand the words that he's saying now, and and it makes you just want to push to do whatever it is that's in your heart. Like Ken said, he had his dream. We are artists. We have our own particular dreams on a smaller scale compared to his. But I was just driven. I mean, in school, I remember hearing those speeches, and it was just it was a good day. I didn't know what that feeling was, but I knew it was something good and something that I wanted more of. So when I think of Dr. King, and as I got older and just started to understand the magnitude of what he stood for, amazing. I mean, watching some of that footage, it brought me, to tears just to think about not what he was saying, but it wasn't just me it was a nation of people that were feeling this way, and he inspired, he inspired so many of us,
How about your character arc from the time you was in Flint heading down to Birmingham? How did you approach that?
Well, my character is from Flint.
Mm-hmm.
His wife is from Alabama. So I approached that. I initially, we have a so-called delinquent son, and to fix him, hey, so-called. I'm trying to be nice to you. So, as a father, I understand where my wife and my mother-in-law are coming from. Send them down here, let them see the real world, or this side of the real world. But as a father and understanding what's happening there to us, and especially to black men, young black men, I don't really want to. That's not my first choice. Mm-hmm. That's not my first choice. I think I know it will have some kind of effect on them, some benefit, but my character, I looked at that as sending my son into the lion's den, and I don't have to. So I want to try everything else that I can before we get to that point, before to open his eyes up. So I approached it, it was a bit of fear for my character, for my son, for my family. Mm-hmm. I don't express that to them verbally, to my son, or my reservations, but it's there because I know the real. I mean, the day that the bombing of the church happened in Birmingham, that I think the next day or later on that week, two kids around the age of my sons were killed as well. So when I read and researched it, so that had a huge impact on how I looked at that drive to Birmingham.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and let's move over to Birmingham. At the director, what made you choose this particular play?
Oh, well, the interesting thing is I didn't choose it. It chose me. Mm-hmm. Literally, a girlfriend of mine, her name is Alexandra. It was given to her by Mr. Harry Jones, who is our producer. And Mr. Jones is an advocate for telling the Black experience. And he's been doing it for over 20 years. And so this was one of the plays that he had on his heart for a while. Mm-hmm. And so he approached Alexandria, and she felt like she wasn't the one to direct it. So she called me in August and said, "Hey, would you be willing to direct this piece?" And I was like, "Yeah, let me think about it." And that's when I was like, "Oh, this was a book and this was a movie," and I had no idea about this piece. And something inside said, "Do it." So I took it on, and didn't look back. And it's been a very interesting, emotional experience on many levels. Mm-hmm. My mom, who grew up during this time, she's a military brat, so the integration of things happened on the military base before they ever happened in Little Rock, Arkansas, or anywhere else. They always kind of started with the military. Mm-hmm. And so just to listen to her stories about how she was spit on, how she was called names, how she fought to overcome through sports. And so, instead of lashing out and going off because she knew she really couldn't do that, she would show up on the field, and kind of gain her value that way. And just even experiencing traveling, going to Germany, going to Japan, and just seeing how you're treated there versus how you're treated here, how you're valued there. And she would be the only little dark-skinned girl in the class because she's in a military school. But just the value of who she is as a human being was greatly impressed upon her versus when she was in North Carolina, going to church, going to school. So,
what is the meaning of Dr. King to you?
It's interesting. I think when I was listening to everybody, and two things that came up for me with Dr. King was humility and shrewdness. Humility in the sense of he didn't start the civil rights movement, but there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about God sets the time and places. And I feel like God put him right where he needed to be, gave him the ability to be this amazing orator and to also be a Christian with deep convictions. So it wasn't like, well, hey, I'm just going to go out and preach this word about, hey, we need to approach nonviolence. He was willing. He had counted the cost of what it would mean to be in the forefront of this movement, meaning that not only does that mean I might not get to spend a lot of time with my family, I might miss the growing ups of my kids and the firsts of things. I won't get to love up on my wife. I won't even get to preach in my church, because I have to be in the forefront of that. And I think the biggest cost that he had to count was I could die at any moment in any time. And being willing to do it anyway,
Yep.
And the humility of those that were moving the civil rights and doing what they were doing and saying, you know what, we're going to rally around this man because we feel like he is the best face for what we're trying to do. Right. And then not only that, but the shrewdness and the strategic decisions that were made. So, for example, the bus boycott, right? Doing it, realizing, the majority of people get off work at this time. And it was one of his constituents that saw, you know what, when there was a riot that happened at a park, and it happened to be really filled with a bunch of African American people. And so it looked like all these people were a part of this big movement. And it was like, ding, light bulb, we need to do this, during this time when everybody's getting off work at this time, and then we need to march. And it will look like a whole band of people are marching, oh my goodness, I can't believe I forgot her name. She's sat on the back of the bus. Help me.
Rosa Parks.
Thank you. Rosa Parks. And just how people go, she just happened to be. And I was like, no. She didn't just happen to be. That was planned. It was strategic. And just really being shrewd. And I appreciate that, because I think that we think, it just happened. And it's like, no. It was proper planning. It was shrewd decisions. It was very strategic, in trying to get this out there to the masses, to the media. And one thing that I realize is we can get very callous now because of social media, where back then to see what you see on television was appalling. And it caused an uproar where people felt like I have to do something. It wasn't any more about black or white. It was about the human race and the condition of how you treat people. Okay. And so for me, that's what Martin Luther King, brings to mind is courage, shrewdness, and humility.
And he empowered what I think Bernadette's talking about was an empowerment that he set afire in us to take action.
Okay. The past few days I've listened to all kind of comments about the meaning of Dr. King. Some people making fun of his sex life or his nonviolent philosophy. But you can bet that there was one man who really understood the meaning of Dr. King, and that was J. Edgar Hoover. Now, I would like to play a clip from a tape about the Hoover Memo, and then we'll come back for some comments.
Now, after J. Edgar Hoover used this methodology to bring down Marcus Garvey and destroy the Universal Negro Improvement Association, as I mentioned, he would perfect this into a technique that would be used in the 60s, most notably against Malcolm X and against Dr. King. Now, what was it really about Minister Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King that made them such a threat to the American ways of life in the eyes of J. Edgar Hoover? answer to that question is found in a memo by J. Edgar Hoover in response to a discussion about Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, this memo, in which J. Edgar Hoover would send around to most of his trusted FBI agents, would become known as the Hoover Memo. The memo reads, to prevent the rise of a Messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement, Malcolm X might have been such a Messiah. He is a martyr of the movement today. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad all aspired to this position. Elijah Muhammad is less a threat because of his age. King could become a very real contender for this position should he abandon his supposed obedience to white liberal doctrine of nonviolence and embrace black nationalism. Now, this was a FBI memorandum that was issued on March the 4th, 1968. And keep it in mind, just a month, a few weeks after that, up in April, the assassination of Martin Luther King in Memphis. The goal of this memo was to prevent the rise of a black Messiah who could unify the black masses. Hoover never forgot his experience with Marcus Garvey and the fear that the Garvey movement caused. This was the foundation for the creation of the underground program that I mentioned called COINTELPRO, whose sole purpose was to neutralize any organization deemed un-American. Both Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King had the potential to duplicate the success of the Marcus Garvey movement. As long as Malcolm X was part of the organizational structure of the Nation of Islam under the control of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was no threat to duplicate the success of Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association. The same in relationship to Dr. King. As long as Dr. Martin Luther King was under the conservative, nonviolent movement of civil rights, he was no threat to duplicate the national and international success of the Marcus Garvey movement. But with the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize in his opposition to the Vietnam War, this took him, like Malcolm X when he separated from the Nation of Islam, out of the arena of civil rights into the arena of human rights, from the national scene to the international scene. Moved by Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King from the national arena of civil rights to the international arena of human rights, which signed their death warrant.
Hoover saw in Dr. King another Marcus Garvey who was able to organize a mass unity of people, which means economic power. We won't get into a deep discussion of that. I just want to mention one thing because I want to have time so we can move into the scenes. Another thing that I think is so important that I very seldom hear people talk about is the civil court case. Who's familiar with the court case that the King family brought about the assassination of Dr. King? It was sort of kept out of the news. Let me read it real quick, and then we'll move to our scenes, and then we'll come back for some comments. Dr. Martin Luther King family and his personal friends and attorney William F. Pepper won a civil trial that found U.S. government agency guilty in the wrongful death of Martin Luther King. The 1999 trial, King family versus Jowers and other unknown co-conspirators, is the only trial ever conducted on the assassination of Dr. King. The overwhelming evidence of government complicity introduced and agreed as comprehensively valid by the jury included the 111 military intelligence group was sent to Dr. King's location and that the usual police protection was pulled away just before the assassination. Military intelligence set up photographers on a roof of a fire station with a clear view to Dr. King's balcony. 20th Special Force Group had an 8-man sniper team at the assassination location on that day. Memphis police ordered the scene where multiple witnesses reported as the source of shooting cut down of their bushes that would have hid a sniper team, along with sanitizing a crime scene. Police abandoned investigative procedures to interview witnesses who lived by the scene of the shooting. The King family believed the government motivation to murder Dr. King was to prevent his imminent campaign at Washington, D.C. until the Vietnam War was ended and those resources directed to end poverty and invest in U.S. hard and soft infrastructure. So it's an important trial that I think is worth reading because they kept it out of the news.
Of course they did.
Yeah. And, okay, so let's head into the setting up. Can you set these two scenes, and then when we do the scenes, we'll come back around for some final comments.
Great.
The first scene.
The first thing we're going to do is Grandma Sands and Byron. So, as we know, Byron is a troubled child.
He's a rebel.
On his own path.
Yes. But he does, it's funny because, and I've talked to Jamin about this, he doesn't do things without a forethought. He's angry, and it's that lack of, I don't understand, and I don't even know how to process all of what I'm feeling, and I don't even know how to talk about it. So a lot of times he is reactionary and will lash out. So this particular scene is when they come back from walking through the streets of Birmingham and seeing the white-only colored signs and the white and colored water fountains, and we want our white laundromat and things that they just didn't see living in their community in Flint, Michigan.
Okay.
He comes back, he's very angry, and he lashes out, and Grandma Sands witnesses it.
Okay.
Do you want to say what he actually did?
Nope, you're gonna say it in the monologue in the scene.
You got him.
It didn't move. It should have flown.
Do you think that bird wanted to be killed?
Huh?
Do you think that bird wanted to be killed?
No. Ma'am. No, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. You've heard what's going on down here.
Blacks are marching for our rights.
Do you think they want to be killed?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think they should fly? Should they run?
No, they should fight.
Why'd your folks bring you down here, Byron? You've been doing things you know is wrong. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, your parents still believe in you, although they all but give up on you. You keep going the way you're going, you're going to be as dead as that bird.
Huh?
Mm-hmm. This is a rough world, and for a black man, But me and your parents, we do still believe in you. Just like that bird did.
Huh?
If someone you don't like beats up on you, does that change how you feel about them?
No.
Well, okay. There's boys and girls your age who'll be marching this week, marching unprotected into the mouth of all that hate. And the grown folks are counting on this happening, not because they want to see the kids hurt, but because they believe in those who would do the hurting.
That's hip when we marching.
Oh, no, not you. Your soul's just a touch too tender. You need to learn that there's more than one kind of strength. These white folks want us to be violent to them so they can feel good about being violent to us. I'm not saying you're not strong. I'm saying you got the kind of strength that'll get you killed. By not fighting Byron, we let their own hearts tell them they're wrong. Now, I can't tell you what to do, but know this, your brother looks up to you. He's going to do as he see you do. Don't you do him like you did that bird.
Okay, let's do the setting for the second scene.
Okay.
We'll come back.
The second scene is they're finally off, going to Alabama. The parents have made a decision, and they're going. And this is a conversation between Kenny and his dad about trying to understand. Kenny's trying to understand why we have to go. Why do we have to pick up and go? And what is the real meaning of going? What is that going to do? How is that going to do anything that matters? And the father tries to explain that to him in the car ride.
Okay.
Well. Look who's decided to come back to life. How'd you sleep?
Okay, I guess. Are we there yet?
Oh, no. Et tu, Brute? You were my last hope.
I'm sick of this old car, Dad. Does Byron really have to go to Alabama? Can we just drive to about Ohio and pretend we're going to leave him there?
Kenneth, I know you're going to miss Byron. But, son, there are some things that Byron needs to learn. And he isn't learning them in Flint. And the things that he is learning, well, those are the things that we don't want him to. Do you understand?
No.
You've seen what's happened. You've seen on the news what's happening in some parts of the South, right?
Oh, I've seen pictures of a bunch of really mad white people with twist-up faces, screaming, giving little dirty finger signs to some Negro kids who are just trying to go to school.
Well, a lot of the times, that's going to be the way of the world for you kids. I mean, there's just so many things that can go wrong for a young person, and Byron seems bound and determined to find each and every one of them. So maybe spending some time down south will help open his eyes. You understand?
I think so, Dad.
Good. I'll be back. Maybe at the end of the summer. Maybe next year. It's completely on him now.
Since he was talking to me like a grown-up, I have to be careful not to dig my jaws out of my butt. Dad?
Yeah?
I got one more question.
What do you want to know, Kenny?
Can we play Yakety Yak?
Oh, sure.
Okay, let's go around for some comments about it. Also, let's talk about the play again and give all of the basic information and explain to the audience why they should come and see this play.
Why should they come see the play?
This is awesome.
No, it's a great story. I mean, it's family friendly. I mean, I encourage everyone to bring your young children. It's a learning moment, you know, for young and older folks who may not have known about this time period or these incidents that we touch upon in the play. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. We're having a good time rehearsing and playing around with it. So we want to share that with everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that it's a play about a family, and we all have family, and we all have family dynamics, and you definitely see that in the Watson clan. It's a community of people. It's an ensemble cast. Everybody is really connected to each other, and everybody has a personal story that has brought who they're playing and how they're connecting to the other people in the cast to life. It's, again, we open January 26th. We will be performing Fridays and Saturday evenings at 8 o'clock and Sundays at 3 o'clock. We will be at the Hudson Backstage Theater in Hollywood, California. You can get your tickets and all the information on the show on Plays 411, and that is www.plays411.com/The Watsons. We really hope everybody comes out. It is a tribute to African American History Month in February, but it's a tribute to theater. And I think that it is for anyone, young or old. They're going to enjoy it.
I also want to add, too, that in this is a climate that we're talking about things, adults are talking about things, and they're often leaving their children out of the conversations. And this is a great way to bring your children into a conversation, to make it a family day, to have a whole family conversation, to go home and talk about it, to drive and talk about it in the car. It's funny. It has its moments of all kinds of things, dance and theater. Oh, it's just a great way for a family to come together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it shows different levels of bullying from school and families to the pinnacle of it, which is the bombing in Alabama.
How about the production team? Can you talk a little about the stage manager, the costumes?
Oh my gosh, we have amazing. I've been blessed with an amazing team. First of all, I've been blessed with amazing cast. We have a cast of 13 people, and
they're going to put up their group picture.
Yeah, and they're amazing. But I also have an amazing crew, and without them, half of the things that I need done wouldn't get done. I have Pam Knowles, who is the utmost. She is my right and left arm. And I wish that she was here.
Get well
but she is
soon,
sick.
Pam.
She's sick, and we want her to get well. But she's incredible. And she definitely is a huge component for me. Then we have David Fofi, who is our production designer. He's been my mentor for over 10 years. And so it's just great to have him on board.
He designed the set and all that.
Yes. We came up with the idea of how we wanted to do this show. It's not a typical stage production. It definitely has multimedia in it. It has choreography in it, as well as the storytelling of the actors. The set is very minimal because of how we wanted to tell the story. Then I have Matt Richner, who is my incredible lighting and sound designer. I have my fantastic husband of 18 years, who is my multimedia designer. His name is Jamal Speaks. And then I have Mr. Harry Jones, who is backing this whole entire project. We have Publicity for You that has helped with publicity. We have another gentleman by the name of Drew Rothschild, who has just come on board to really help push just to get it out there for the masses so that they can come see it. We have the Hudson Backstage family. They have been super supportive to us. Comedy Central has been very accommodating because we are definitely in their home space. So without this crew,
Ashford, don't forget
Ashford. Oh yes, hello, Olivia. Ashford. Ashford Jackaway. She is our costume designer. She was recommended to me by Naila Sanders, who works with Arobi, and she is amazing, completely dedicated, just on fire and passionate about the costumes for the show. We have the choreographers, which is Ashe and Sherry Roan. They've done all the movement, and Ashe did a lot of the stage combat. I mean, it really takes a village to pull things together. And I'm very excited that I have this village with us.
Okay, we got a few minutes. Take about maybe 15 or 20 seconds each and give me some closing comments. Starting around.
Oh, start with me again? Come on, let's do it the other way so I get into it.
You've done so well. Come on, Javen.
Closing remarks. Okay. The Watsons Go to Birmingham 1963. To me is so topical, like for today. So what the scenes that we set and the issues that the family and surrounding are going through it's part of our history, but it's also the principles and the essence of what's going on what was going on back then is happening here.
Okay.
It's happening now. So.
Okay.
It's a part of our current events to help you navigate this time, give you new ideas that are based on old ways of revealing truths and revealing a power from within you.
Okay.
Well, the play has pretty much everything. You can go see some dancing, some singing. You can go to church. Get to talk to me. I'm talking to the audience. Lucky you. And yeah, it has everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything that they said. And I'm the type of person that loves to learn and loves to share what I learn with other people. And, theater is a perfect way, to tell stories and to share knowledge. And I think this is a perfect piece for that, because I think it's one of those productions that people will go home and talk about what they saw. The funny parts, the moving parts, the emotional parts. So I'm just excited to be a part of this amazing team.
Okay.
I think the thing I want to end with is love covers a multitude of experience, and that's what this play is about. It's really about how love overcomes at the end of it all.
Okay. Okay, special thanks to the cast and production team.
Yay, thank you for having us.
Birmingham. Our next broadcast is Thursday, February the 8th at 11 o'clock. Topic, African American and Spanish as a second language. A special thanks to my cast right here. I'll be there to check it out. Please listen to past shows of the Qumran Report by Googling in Qumran Report. Thank you for tuning in to the Qumran Report. From your host, Melvin Ishmael Johnson, may the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. I leave you with Homeboy by Sunji Ali.
Homeboy. Brothers, there's only one blood, 'cause it ain't no sense in us traveling on the stone.